The model of Jesus' discipleship assumes learning, observing, imitating, and then taking responsibility. Jesus gives the disciples different tasks. Sometimes they are administrative, other times they are for proclamation and direct ministry. I want you to see together with me an important difference. Jesus delegates ministry in one way in Matthew 10 and in another way in Matthew 28. Essential differences between Matthew 10 and 28. Who initiates and who leads? Matthew 10, Jesus leads directly. The disciples work under his supervision. They return and give a report. Matthew 28, Jesus gives the mandate and leaves physically. They lead the work in his name. The idea of process in Matthew 10, they learn to do. In Matthew 28, they become permanent sent ones. The purpose of the mission. Matthew 10, training mission. Jesus teaches them dependence, courage, the message, and discernment. The emphasis falls on formation. Matthew 28, life mission. The purpose is multiplication, make disciples. The emphasis falls on reproduction. Matthew 10 means guided practice. Matthew 28 means reproduction. The target audience. Matthew 10, clear limitations. Do not on the road of the Gentiles, to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Matthew 28, total expansion, all nations. Process. The disciples begin in a restricted framework, then they receive the world. The geography. Matthew 10, local in Israel, close to Jesus, in a familiar space. Matthew 28, global, without limits, across cultural borders. Process. First you learn in the laboratory, then you enter the field. The message. Matthew 10, message focused on the coming of the kingdom in the context of Israel and the coming of the Messiah. Matthew 28, complete message connected to the death, the resurrection, and the reign of Jesus, plus teaching obedience. Process. Before the cross, they still do not have the complete package. After the resurrection, they have the complete message. The delegated authority. Matthew 10, Jesus gives them authority for specific works in limited framework. Matthew 28, Jesus declares, all authority has been given to me, and then sends them on the basis of this total authority. Process. In Matthew 10, they taste authority. In Matthew 28, they operate under the cosmic authority of the risen Lord. The task. How big it is. Matthew 10, specific task, go, preach, heal, cast out demons, depend on hosts, remain there. Matthew 28, total task, go, make disciples, baptize, teach to keep everything I have commanded. Matthew 10, you do ministry. Matthew 28, you form people who do ministry. The duration and style. Matthew 10, temporary sending for a stage in Jesus' ministry. Matthew 28, permanent mandate for the entire era of the church. The content of the formation. Matthew 10, mission rules, persecution, discernment, dependence. Matthew 28, complete curriculum, everything I commanded you, meaning the entire disciple life. The presence of Jesus. Matthew 10, Jesus is present physically in the same region, you return easily to him. Matthew 28, Jesus promises continuous presence, but invisible. I am with you. This requires maturity and faith. Process. The pass from dependence on the visible presence to dependence on the promised presence. And final note, imagine that you are one of the disciples. Imagine that you are one of Jesus' disciples. After 3 years in which you followed him, he is arrested and killed. You go through 3 days in which you are discouraged, confused, grieving, and depressed. Then you hear the great news that Jesus has risen. He teaches you many things for 40 days. Then before he ascends to heaven, he tells you to go back to Galilee, far from Jerusalem, so that all meet there. And you ask yourself, can't he do it here? Why exactly there? Why move so much? Now the reason. When you arrive on the mountain, you see the map of your discipleship. You see the Sea of Galilee. You see the villages where you served. You see the place where he formed you. You remember the calling. You remember the failures. You remember the grace. Then Jesus tells you, receive the authority and the final task. In one word, you have graduated. You are ready to go in all the world. Do you notice how important the graduation is? How important was the authority received after graduation? Where did you graduate, and who was your teacher, whom you imitated? Just as Paul said, "Follow in my footsteps, since I also follow in the footsteps of Jesus." In whose footsteps do you walk, so that I may graduate the discipleship? Reflection questions. Are you in Matthew 10, still in training, or in Matthew 28, already sent to form disciples? Who is forming you now? Who is allowed to tell you the truth and hold you accountable? In whose footsteps do you walk, and can someone walk in your footsteps without getting lost? Under what yoke do you live, the yoke of Christ that brings rest, or the yoke of people that exhaust you? What concrete steps are you taking this week to obey Jesus and start discipling someone?